Welcome to Hanging at the Hangar Bar. I'm Scott.
I'm Candice.
I'm Lariah.
And I'm Lacey. Grab a drink and come hang with us at the Hangar Bar.
Welcome back to Hanging at the Hangar Bar. We are excited to have you here with us today. Candice and I are recording this episode alone, and we're going to start a little series that we're calling Trip Planning with Candice. So, Candice, we want to put a little disclaimer out there before we get into our normal go check out our social media stuff. I've always heard that you're only supposed to change one thing at a time, but today we're changing like 8 things.
Very true.
We're testing out driving while we record. We're testing out a new podcasting setup for better audio quality. So hopefully it results in better audio quality without a lot of noise from the background. Yeah, we're testing out a new series of Plan a Trip with Candice, all of those kind of things. So let's hope everything goes as smoothly as we want it to.
Faith, trust, and pixie dust. That's all we need, right?
Exactly right. So, again, before we jump into the topic for today, just a reminder, go check us out at Hanging at the Hangar Bar at our social medias. We're both on Facebook and Instagram. We would love to have you interact with us. Candice, do you want to tell everybody about your most exciting news?
Okay, well, I would love to, since we are talking about trip planning with Candice. Back in 2013, no.
That sounds about right, 2013.
2013-ish, we had taken a trip to Disney World, and I came home and was talking to a friend of mine, and I made a comment to her that my ideal job would be to plan Disney trips for people. So my dear friend Casey took it upon herself to do some research and figured out that actually is a job. So I got started at that point, went for about 6.5 years-ish, and made the very, very painful decision to close my business when COVID hit.
Stupid COVID.
Right? Because nobody was traveling, and it's actually a lot of work to plan a trip the way that I expect trips to be planned, to take best care of my clients. So, I mean, there really wasn't anything to do.
Right.
But some changes, very positive changes, have happened, including the decrease in COVID for at least now. So I feel confident in picking up again because it was something that I really, really enjoyed doing.
For the most part, I think you enjoyed it. There were parts of it that got a little tedious.
Yes. So I have decided that for now, at least, I'm going back to planning Disney trips for folks, and I'm doing it by appointment only. So I don't have regularly set hours or anything like that. It's just kind of an as-needed basis.
That's exciting. I'm so happy for you. I know how much fun you had doing that and how many really cool trips you plan for people at the same time. If you want to check out Candice, just get in contact with us. If you're planning a trip, she would love to help you. And I'll tell you what, I'm a little bit biased, but she is really good at what she does.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And I will just put this out there that I do not plan cookie cutter trips for people. So if you get in contact with me, your Disney trip that I plan for you is going to be completely different than a Disney trip that I plan for your best friend.
Yeah, that's so true. And a Disney trip needs to be unique to that individual family, that individual person, all of those things. That makes a good Disney trip. No 2 trips should look alike.
Exactly. And no 2 trips for the same family should ever look alike either.
Right. How many trips have we been on and none of them have been the same?
I don't know the exact number, but I get what you're saying.
But they haven't been the same.
No, they have not.
So yeah, today we wanted to start just in honor of Candice coming back into the travel agent game a little bit. We wanted to spend a little bit of time starting a new series. I don't know how often we'll do these, but we're going to call it a series just because we think it might be helpful for folks. So we're going to do trip planning with Candice, and it's just an opportunity for us to ask her questions about how she would plan or how she approaches Disney vacations and that kind of thing. Does that sound fair for me to pepper you with lots of questions today?
It does, and that also gives our listeners a chance, if they have additional questions that they'd like to hear in future episodes of Disney Trip Planning with Candice, they can go ahead and hit us up on Instagram or Facebook and put your questions there, and then I'll be more than happy to reach out and get in touch with you and answer those in future episodes.
Okay. So my first question for you, Candice, is let me back up. My first question for you is why use a travel agent?
Okay, that's a great question. And okay, first of all, I have to go a little bit snippy with this response. I don't consider myself a travel agent because I don't just push buttons.
Right.
I consider myself a travel designer. And it's fancy and it sounds hoity-toity, but I guess that's where we're at.
Ooh.
I know, right? So the reason that I would use a travel professional, travel designer, travel whatever you want to call us, is because generally we don't cost anything above the price of your trip. With that said, we are paid by Disney. We're paid by on a commission basis by Disney. We get a percentage of your trip, but it's not going to cost you any more. And you could go direct, book direct with Disney for the same price. And it's not going to cost you any more to work with somebody. One of the biggest benefits I have found in experience with my clients is that they have somebody that they know and somebody that they can reach out and get in touch with if there is a problem.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest part of it, is because you're getting ready to go on your vacation, or you're on your vacation and you need some help with travel arrangements, with something that maybe isn't going quite to what you had planned. How long, if you were to call Disney's travel agents right now, their own in-house travel agents, how long would you have to wait to get through?
I've seen comments from other travel providers, travel agents, that have been up to 4-hour hold times.
Yeah, so if I'm on vacation, I would rather call Candice and say, hey, fix this for me while I'm waiting in line for rides or eating lunch or whatever. Let her sit on hold with the Disney folks instead of you having to do that. So I think that's a huge benefit. Why else? What other benefits do I get working with you as a travel professional?
Well, the time that I take to actually get to know my clients is a big benefit, because I'm going to know the loves and dislikes of your family. I'm going to be able to make recommendations on restaurants that will serve food that you're going to like. I'll be able to give recommendations on what to stay away from. If you have medical conditions like motion sickness, that sort of thing, I'm going to be able to say, you may not want to go on mission space. So just some of those personalized recommendations that I can make. And like, even I have clients traveling over Memorial Day, and I recommended, just based on crowd levels and that sort of thing that's expected for Memorial Day itself, I recommended that be their off day, so they don't go into the parks on that day, but we've built out a trip around them being there during that time.
Right. That's such a good point. And I think that also speaks to why an independent, smaller travel professional is good. You think about going, and we won't name any big box stores, but just think big box store travel professionals. They're in it for as many people as they can get through the door. And it's like, oh, we have this package that's a good deal for you. And the next 1,000 people that come through are going to get that package. And like we mentioned earlier, that then makes it a cookie cutter vacation. You're trying to make it exactly what it is for everybody else, and they're not going to be able to make it unique for you and your family, right?
Right. And most of the time, like, it's always kind of baffled me, because like the big box stores that do travel, they get special pricing when they put these packages together, and they get so many of these packages that they can sell. Well, the thing about it is that typically small travel professionals like myself can't beat their prices. However, I will say, on the trip that I have planned for the Memorial Day weekend, I was actually able to beat a big box price by about $1,300.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
And I don't say that as like trying to pump you up. That's Disney prices right now. That's really impressive that you were able to come in cheaper than like, I didn't think Disney was doing different prices.
Yeah, they do have promotions, and that's another thing that I will say as a benefit to going with a smaller travel professional. Some don't do it, but, if somebody's worth their salt, they will. I have automatic discount monitoring for my clients. So say, for example, that you book a trip with me and then 2 weeks down the road, Disney releases a promotion for during that time. I'm going to go back and I'm going to go sit on hold for 4 hours or whatever it takes to get a hold of someone to be able to apply that discount to your reservation. And then it's a really fun phone call when I get to call a client and say, hey, Disney just launched this promotion and I just saved you an additional $800 on your trip.
Right.
And they didn't even have to let me know, like, hey, I saw this sale. Does this apply? No, I take care of all of that for you.
Right. Okay, so let's actually get into travel planning. I'm just going to role play somebody who might be calling you to think about a trip. I'm thinking about a trip, Candice. When should I go?
Okay, well, a lot of that is going to depend on your family because if you have kids that are school age, it's going to depend on if you want to pull them out of school. It's going to depend on your health conditions because, we all know that Florida is hot and humid, but there are times of the year, like in the middle of the summer, when you can have your kids out of school, that it is the most hot and humid. But if you're going to be adversely affected by that heat and humidity, it's probably not a good idea, even if your kids are out of school and that's the time to go.
So we are a podcast about Disney adults. When's the best time for me to go where I can minimize, not get rid of, but minimize my interactions with ankle biters?
Well, since you put it that way, I would say anytime during school is in session. Historically, we have always gone in September and October. Number one, the Food and Wine Festival is going on at Epcot.
Food and wine.
2, the parks are really decorated for fall, and they're very cute, and the evenings are a little cooler than they would be in the dead of summer, and yet it's not as chilly as it is in, say, December or January, that range.
What's the definition of chilly? Because, like you mentioned, like paying attention to what kind of weather you want. I'm not a fan of heat, so I want to go when it's a little cooler. What is your definition of chilly?
Well, you have to remember the amount of humidity in Florida is different than it is in a lot of other areas of the country. Specifically with us being located in Nebraska, we have humidity and a lot of it, but it's different in Florida because of the ocean surrounding most of the state. So 50 degrees in Florida is cold.
Okay, I have another question. I just can't think of what it is. I had it on the tip of my tongue, and then I decided to pass someone as we drive down the road and forgot my question. Okay, so let's say I want cooler temperatures. So I'm thinking either late in the year or really early in the year, right? Like November through February-ish, if I want cooler temperatures, less ankle biters.
Okay.
What are my pros and cons of like each month, November through February, as we narrow this down?
Okay, well, in this November and December, you're going to run into the holiday season. The prices for admission, hotel prices, all that sort of thing is going to be higher because of that. A pro is that the parks are decorated for the holidays and they are absolutely stunning, but there's higher crowds because of that as well. It used to be that the week between Thanksgiving and the first week of December, or that area, the week after Thanksgiving basically is what I'm trying to say, was ideal because the Thanksgiving crowds were gone and the December crowds hadn't quite picked up yet. With everything that's happening since the parks reopened after COVID, I don't know that there's really a down time to go.
Right. Crowd-wise, you mean?
Crowd-wise, yes. So that's November. December, of course, you're dealing with the holidays and all of that. On the opposite side of low crowd numbers, the week between Christmas and New Year's is one of the most highly crowded weeks in the entire year.
And is that just because kids are out of school, it's still decorated, people going down there to celebrate New Year's, that kind of thing?
Yes. Yeah, if let's go to Disney World for Christmas and stay until New Year's and
right,
celebrate and watch the cool fireworks and all of that kind of thing.
Right.
However, with that said, that is pretty much the one time of year that the parks will actually close due to capacity limitations. And I don't know about you, but I really don't want to be one of 100,000 people in Magic Kingdom Park.
No. Is there a way I can make it I'm one of 100 people in Magic Kingdom?
Well, if they open up the after-hours events like what we did in 2019, that would be a good start.
Yes. Go back and listen to our Dreaming Disney podcast from last season where I talk about my perfect trip and understand that if I could do paid after-hours events for everyone, that is what I would plan. So I'm now looking I want cooler temperatures, less crowded. I'm looking into January and February. I miss out on food and wine. I miss out on some of the decorations that maybe are the Christmas decorations that are so stunning. But I've landed on January, February to go, which is fine. So I want to stay somewhere that's fun. I want to stay somewhere that has a lot going on. So like in the evenings, if I'm not in a park or on my resort day or whatever, I want to have a lot that's kind of going on. What are 2 or 3 places that you would suggest if that's kind of my criteria that I come to you with?
Sure. Well, knowing that we don't have children, I would probably recommend, at the very least, a moderate level resort, someplace like Port Orleans French Quarter. Riverside is a little more subdued and not quite the party vibe. I mean, it's a huge resort, but it doesn't have quite the feeling that French Quarter does, even though French Quarter is a much smaller part of that resort.
Right.
I would also recommend Disney's Boardwalk, because the nightlife on the boardwalk is so much fun and there's tons to do.
And that's like right walking distance to Epcot, right?
No.
To the backside of Epcot?
No, that's Beach Club you're thinking.
Okay.
But, I mean, you can walk over to Swan and Dolphin, which is walkable to the Putt-Putt Golf Course.
Okay.
And then I would also recommend one of the monorail loop resorts around Magic Kingdom.
Okay. Just for convenience or why?
Just for convenience, and they do have a lot of activities. Most of the resorts do feature like a movie under the stars every night, and then there's always kids' activities and additional things that you can do.
Okay. How long should my trip be? Well, before we get there, let's pick a place. I've always wanted to stay on the monorail loop, so that gives me the choice between the Contemporary, the Grand Floridian, and the Poly.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to choose that, that's a deluxe. Again, dual income, no children. I'm going to live it up. Which one of those 3 is your favorite?
Well, I've actually only had the privilege to stay in one of them. I've stayed in the Contemporary. I stayed there when I went to my Disney Institute workshop.
Right.
And that was an amazing place to stay. When I first got there, I was kind of like, oh, so this is kind of a disappointment because it looks like a hotel.
Yeah, that one feels very much like a hotel to me.
Yeah, it does. They have refurbished a lot of the rooms to be Incredibles themed, which I think is kind of interesting. It's a bold choice.
Is bold choice not necessarily good choice in this case?
I don't know because I haven't seen it. The pictures
Okay.
are kind of underwhelming for me, and I don't know. I think it was changed for the sake of change and not change because it was necessary.
Right.
But I will say that as far as the 3, I think the Polynesian Village Resort is probably my favorite of the 3. And that's just because we are such ocean people and islandy people
Right.
and all of that who live in Nebraska.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. So you sold me. I'm staying at the Poly. How do I choose my room?
Depends on your travel size. Most of the resort rooms on Disney property, unless you have a family suite or one of the Disney Vacation Club villas, which, side note, you do not have to be a member of Disney Vacation Club to book into those resorts. There just has to be availability for the room level that you're looking at. But going back to what I was saying, the occupancy limits for most of the resort rooms is 4 adults. Now, that doesn't mean 2 adults and 47 children. If children are involved, it's usually 2 adults and maximum of 3 children.
Okay.
So it's going to depend on your travel party as far as how many people you need to have rooms for.
Okay, I just need one room. It's you and I going.
Okay. Then I guess you need to think about how long you're actually going to spend in the room and what amenities you're looking for within that room. Because, well, I mean, if you say dual income, no kids, we're going to live it up, I'm probably going to start pricing the over-the-water bungalows, which, yes, they'll sleep up to 10 people, but it's also looking right at Magic Kingdom.
Okay, I'm going to live it up, Candice, but I'm still a cheap ass.
Oh, all right.
You know this about me.
I do.
So what are my choices knowing that I want to live it up, but I'm a cheap ass?
Okay. Well, then I would probably just go one of the standard view rooms and call it good.
Okay. So what does standard view mean?
Standard view typically means that you're going to either be staring at a parking lot, maybe some of the gardens, although there are garden view rooms as well, but you may get to look at some landscape in a standard view as well.
Okay. I want to live it up a little bit more than that, but not the $12,000 a night bungalow.
They're not that much, but anyway, I know what you're saying. So you may look for something like a garden view or a water view, or, I mean, there's tons of options.
Does the Poly have park views where I'll be able to watch fireworks?
Yes.
Let's book into one of those.
Okay. We can do
We're
that.
not gonna. We're driving, so she's not gonna give pricing on any of this because it would change anyway. We're just talking through how we would kind of plan a trip and how I think probably people talk to her as she talks to potential clients that are traveling. So I'm just trying to ask all those kinds of questions. Okay, so we've picked a firework or a park view room at the Poly. How long should I be staying? I want to live it up. I have enough money, but not unlimited.
Okay. So the way we like to do and what we have done the Disney parks in the past is we go with the best of intentions and we buy our park tickets thinking, yes, we're going to hop all over Creation and do all the parks in the same day, and it's never panned out. I think of all the times that we have bought park hoppers, we have used it once.
Right.
Just because we like to have experiences and we like to actually enjoy the details, and I know we've talked about this ad nauseum in future or previous episodes of the podcast. We don't go ride to ride to ride to ride to ride.
Right.
So typically one park per day is enough for us. And we also like to build in a non-park day, kind of in the middle as a rest and recovery day, where we can explore our resort, hang out at the pool, enjoy some of those other things that Disney has that not a lot of people take advantage of,
right,
in my opinion. So I would say 5 to 6 days is a good amount of time. I mean, you could spend months there and not see and do everything.
Right.
But I think for a single trip, 5 or 6 days maybe.
Okay. So 5 nights, like I would almost think 4 parks is 4 nights, a middle a day. So you're actually talking 5 nights. You would need to plan 7 days of vacation, right?
Correct. Plus your drive time.
Well, hold on. So I need to add an extra day because I'm flying in from Nebraska, so I might not be able to do anything on day 1.
Oh, you'll be able to do things. I wouldn't recommend going into a park.
Right. So if I'm not going to get to Orlando until 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it may be a Disney Springs kind of night.
Exactly.
But that also counts as a night. So if I don't do 6 days or 6 nights, I don't get my day off in the middle, right?
Right.
Okay, so I need to do 6 nights.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the little thing that I think a travel agent can help you think about, too. Like, yes, I'd be saving a few $100s or whatever, maybe even like $700 or $800 by not being in a room for that extra night. But then what do you lose out on? If you want to go to all 4 parks and have a resort day, you can't do that if you're only there for 5 nights and you're traveling in.
Right.
So that's just something to keep in mind that a travel agent can help you with. Okay, so we're looking at 6 nights. what are things that I, as your client, need to consider as we sort of plan? And sorry for my traffic just kind of picked up. So if I seem a little distracted, there's a reason, because I don't want us to crash. We don't want this to be our last ever podcast.
No.
So where was my question going? So what are the things that I need to do now in the Disney universe? Like, I know you used to have to plan fast passes. Would you? We don't even need to talk about if that's something you would have done or not. But what are the things that I need to make sure that I'm ready for and I'm planning for, and what are those things that you'll take care of for me?
Okay, so dining reservations would probably be the first thing that you would want to think about. You don't have the 180 days to plan for those anymore, which is kind of a good thing, because while it's entirely possible to decide what you want to do 6 months down the road, that can change. But if you have a dining reservation, especially for something as popular as Cinderella's Royal Table or Be Our Guest or something like that, is that something that you really want to give up?
Right.
So that's the first thing that I would think about. And yes, I am more than happy to make those reservations for you, or you can do it yourself. If it's something that I do for you, I do get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and am ready with Disney Dining to get those reservations for you, so you don't have to.
Right.
Another thing you're going to want to start doing is take a list or make a list of the things that you absolutely must do. The rides you want to go on, the attractions that you want to see, the live entertainment that you just have to have. Maybe even a list of the foods that you want to eat.
Restaurants.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
If there's any food booths that you want to try in Epcot.
Yes.
Okay.
That sort of thing. You'll also need to make park reservations for the days that you're going to want to be in which parks. And that is actually not something that I can do, because there are COVID testaments on those park reservations that you have to sign off on. And I cannot do that for you.
Okay. And is the reservation system, I know that's new and it was kind of a COVID era thing. Is there a chance that reservations are going to go away?
Everything that I have heard is that is being extended into at least 2023.
Okay. Yeah, and I've kind of read the same thing, that the reservation system is a way for them to manage park capacity a little bit better. Mm-hmm. So they are even contemplating about making park reservations a forever thing, which if they ask me, I would tell them that's a bad idea, but I also get why they're doing it.
And I will say that as far as park hopping, if hopping is something that you're interested in doing, you do have to wait until 2 o'clock in the afternoon to be able to hop. And then you'll only be able to hop if there is capacity to allow that into the park that you want to go into.
Right. Okay. So we have our hotel. We have our trip length. We are talking, how early can you make those park reservations?
You can make them as soon as you get your tickets.
Okay. So it's not like one of those things where I have to wait and get up at 5 o'clock in the morning 60 days before, like I used to have to do with fast passes.
No, that is correct.
Okay. That's new to me. I thought I knew more about that than I thought I did. It's time for Disney trip. See, this is why she's the map and she knows all the things and why she's darn good at her job. Okay, so we have our hotel. We have our park reservations. We don't have our park reservations yet. What kind of tickets should I get? So we talked a little bit about that. We're not big park hopper people. Mm-hmm. So base ticket is probably the best way to go.
I would say base ticket with one park per day, because we honestly have not been to a Disney water park together either.
Right.
There are tickets that do allow you to go into the water parks and a couple of other things without paying additional admission. That is something that can always be added to a ticket. I don't know that it's something that you need to start off with.
Right.
Likewise, if you're not real strong ride people, I mean, we like rides, but if you're not real strong ride people, I would probably even wait to add Disney or I'm sorry, not Disney Plus, Genie Plus, to my ticket until I decided that it would be worth it for that day. I wouldn't add it to my entire package, not for every day.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because if you said you would add Genie Plus, I was going to disagree with you, just because I think Genie Plus is not needed in every park and may not even be needed for any of the parks, depending on what you want to do. Because if you want to do the fancy rides, you can just pay for those individually.
Yes.
And I think that's probably a better idea, because I don't mind waiting in queue lines.
Well, and we've talked about that before on the podcast, where if you skip the queue lines, you're missing a lot of the cool Disney details that kind of pull you into the story anyway.
Yeah. So tell me just something that I'm not thinking about that would help me have a more magical Disney trip.
Well, I will tell anybody that's planning a trip to Disney, or pretty much anywhere else for that matter, pack your patient pants. Another thing is that you're not going to be able to see everything and do everything in one trip. It's just, it's a physical impossibility.
Right.
I would also go into it thinking that you don't have to have every minute of every day planned to be sort of spontaneous as much as possible. Although I know that's a little bit more difficult as crowds pick up and things get more popular. It's harder to find those spontaneous spaces in the park.
Yeah, we were just talking about that the other night. One of our favorite things that we used to like to do was just pull over at Nomad Lounge whenever we wanted to, pull up an empty table and have a drink. And that's something that you can no longer do. You have to get on their walk-up wait list or reservation system or whatever to be able to go to Nomad Lounge. So some of that spontaneity is gone. But I think that patient pants comment is 100% spot on.
And keep in mind, too, that the dining plan is not being offered right now. It's rumored to be coming back, but I think it's going to wait until the end of the 50th anniversary celebration to come back, because they don't need it right now.
Yeah, they don't need a way to drive more people into the parks.
Right, but when you are thinking about budgeting for your trip, do not forget the cost of food. And I will tell you that Disney food is pricey. However, with that said, I will also tell you that Disney food prices, or portion sizes, are huge. So you could very easily take a snack portion of something and make it a light lunch. You could share. There's any number of things that you could do.
Right. So let's talk about, I know you said you would make dining reservations. How far out in advance can we make those now?
60 days.
Okay, so 60 days ahead, I have to be thinking about dining reservations. And how does it work? So 60 days ahead of my first day, or do I have to get different reservations on the 60th day of that day of my trip?
No, it's really cool because it starts 60 days before the first day of your trip, and reservations can be made for the entire stay at that point. So what I found works best most often is to kind of work backwards. Like, I'm going to need to know where you have your park reservations on what day, because if you want to eat at Le Cellier, I need to know what day you're going to be reserved into Epcot, so I can get you that reservation, because I don't want to grab a reservation at Le Cellier on the day that you're going to be in Animal Kingdom.
Such a good point.
So yeah, I'll need a list of when you have the reservations, and then I'll work backwards and get those restaurants as close as I can.
Okay. So I have what restaurants I want to go to. That point you made about knowing which parks you're reserved into is so important. I can imagine that being a horrible, like, all of a sudden you have to either park hop and you don't have a hopper pass, or you're in the wrong park and have to give up your reservation.
Right. And the transportation between the parks, I mean, I always say, even if you're coming from a resort, especially on the Disney buses, as wonderful as they are, I always strongly recommend at least an hour and a half to get where you need to be. So if you're, say, in Magic Kingdom Park and you have a reservation at Le Cellier, even if you do have a park hopper and you have a reservation in an hour, there's a good likelihood that you may not make it just because of transportation.
Right.
Because unfortunately, the buses don't go from park to park to park. They go from parks to resorts. So what you would have to do in that instance, well, with Magic Kingdom and Epcot, it's not so bad because you could probably hop on the monorail.
Right.
But traditionally, you would have to go to someplace like Disney Springs or to a resort and then catch another bus to get back to the park that you need to go to.
Yeah, that makes good sense. Okay, anything else from a trip planning? I know we're still 8 months away from this trip we're talking about, since I'm talking a January trip. So there's still times for us to make changes and think about anything else. But is there anything I need to be thinking about today for this trip that's coming up next January?
I'm thinking.
What about flights?
Flights, you can go ahead and plan your flights. You don't have to. Some people like to sit and watch prices. That gives me anxiety, though. But yeah, I mean, you can book a flight as far out as, like, I think it's 410 days or something like that, where the airlines have published prices. But, I mean, whenever you feel good about doing your flights, that's fine. But definitely be sure and share that information with me so that I can get it lined up so that your hotel knows when you need to be on the shuttle back to the airport. And now that Magical Express is gone, I'm glad I just said that. Now that Magical Express is gone, you actually have to plan transportation to and from Orlando International. That is something that I can help with as well. We've done Happy Limo and hired a car, and that was really smooth. I liked that experience a lot, except the driver was a chatterbox and acted like he was my best friend and knew me all his life, and then he tries to tell me facts about Disney, and I'm like,
I am the map.
Hello.
Okay, so that's a couple of things that we brought up. The transportation, there's lots of different options to get from the airport to Disney itself. Talk to Candice about those. If minivans are up and running, that's the way I'm going, because I want to talk to the fabulous cast member.
Definitely.
And listen to Disney music on the way.
Definitely.
And then the other thing, just a disclaimer, Candice cannot book flights for you. As you think about your travel agent, you'll have to book your own flights, and then she can tie them back to your reservation. She can help you watch prices and that kind of thing, but is it a contractual thing that you can't do flights?
Yes.
Yeah, so there's some contractual things that would not allow Candice to be able to book your flights for you. So just keep that in mind as you're planning.
And also, I will say, travel insurance is of the utmost importance. You won't know it until you need it, but it's well worth the money. Even if you don't use it, the peace of mind is worth that money alone.
Yeah, and I would recommend, I think travel insurance is less than $200.
Typically, yes.
Find that savings somewhere else. I've never had to use travel insurance, but I've seen people that have, that it's like if they hadn't, it would have ruined their life, not just their vacation. So make sure that $200 or less than $200 for the package that you get is worth it. I've never seen anybody that like vacations for a living or is a travel professional that doesn't recommend trip insurance. And I'll tell you what, they're not making money off of that.
No.
So they're recommending it for a reason.
Mm-hmm. And I've had a couple experiences with clients in the past where we've had to utilize their travel insurance for one reason or the other, and I've never regretted recommending a client have it. And then they come back to me saying, we're so glad you recommended that. We were so glad that you twisted our arm, that you basically forced us to take the travel insurance because it paid off.
Right. Okay, I'm feeling good about this trip. So what do you say we wrap this one up for today?
Sounds good.
Okay. Again, thank you all so much for listening. Again, this travel series with Candice or planning trips with Candice, if you enjoyed this, let us know, because we can do more of these. And if you know anything about me, you know I like to play devil's advocate. I'll put myself in the position of a family with 87 children if you want me to, and we can sort of talk through that planning as well, with all the needs that would come with that versus a dual income, no kids, has a little bit of extra money to spend kind of planning. But thank you for all of the advice today, Candice, and thank you for kind of walking through that with us. I think I found it valuable. I hope our listeners did too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say that there's a lot more to planning a trip than meets the eye. And with especially all the new guidelines and rules and all of that around Disney, it's okay to admit that you need some help.
Yep, 100%. And with that, as you plan your next trip, remember there's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow.
And we'll see you real soon.